terms of changing tack a little bit, what's the investment that you're most proud of, and why?
Oh, that's always a really difficult one. Because actually there's great things in the majority of the ones that I've done. But, I guess ultimately it probably has to be the Skyscanner experience, really. In the sense that very rarely do you get to take a company through the scaling journey that they did of going from about 200 people to about 800 people when I left, and through that kind of value growth and in a global marketplace. So those are the ones that when you start out with a very, very small company, everybody dreams that one day that's the company you're going to be, and you don't often actually get to see that happen. Partly because I think a number of companies here sell out a bit too early, and don't keep going on that journey long enough, and so they'll sell out much earlier in the story, and don't ever see their dreams become what they really could do.
Well, the question written here is, what is your biggest regret? And I guess it's worth framing it in terms of are there things you would have done differently in hindsight, or given that we're speaking both to potentially founders of company or somebody thinking about becoming investors, what advice can you give them?
Yeah, I think it's almost always not acting fast enough when actually that something isn't quite right. There's an individual that isn't quite right in the team anymore, or a situation that isn't quite right. And, if I was to look at probably the biggest regret, although I won't go into the exact details of it, there was a situation when I knew a decision that being taken wasn't right, really, I think in my gut, but because I was busy doing other things, I sort of kind of half ignored it and thought, I'll get to that in a couple of weeks' time. And actually it came back and bit the organisation, and whether or not I could have changed anything if I'd really dug in at the time, I don't know. Maybe I could, maybe I couldn't. But, actually I learned that when you actually see something and deep down that actually that's not right, don't let it fester. You need to deal with it. Whether it's an individual and their response to something, or their relationship with somebody else, or it's actually a business commercial type decision that somebody's taking, or not taking, because it's often a decision that someone else is putting off, and actually they really need to face into the fact that they maybe need to change track a little bit, or actually they've kind of overspent a bit, and their spending has got ahead of where they really are commercially, and they need to bring those two things back in line a little bit. But it's just not acting as fast as, in hindsight, I know I should have acted.
And has that changed for you now? Are you always, if you sense something, you always try and deal with it?
I do, yes. I've tried to learn from that. It's not always easy to sense when exactly is the right time, but yeah, I generally try a little more forcefully to address those things now than perhaps I did a few years ago.